Hey guys, so I'm going to do a spirit talk. A little bit, take a little bit of a break from University Idaho Murders. I know a lot of people have joined since I've been doing the readings. I'm Ellen. If you don't know, I've been a reader for about over 20 years. Somewhere 23, 24, somewhere there's gonna be 24 next year. I don't know. It's been a long time. Been doing this for a while. Where I've been reading. I like to use divination, tarot. I'm a fan of. The reason why, especially, is something I can show you or I can show clients. That's kind of, you could say, my evidence, if you want to say, of the spirit versus my flapping gums. That's why I'm a big fan of tarot. This is something I can show people versus just I'm sitting here and I'm feeling this or that. Right. Okay. So this is a good thing. It can tell a story and everything. It's very powerful in that way. So we've been, of course, as many of you just recently found me, especially University Idaho Murders. I've been trying to read like missing person, some true crime. I will take on those. One of these days, I will sit with JonBenét. I've been wanting to do that, and I will tell you, I've never put cards down on the JonBenét case. Never have. I do have some feelings and things. I'm not feeling the parents are behind it. I'm not feeling necessarily the kid is behind it either. I know some people have wondered about the kid. Oh, we covered it up because of the kid. I understand that. I still haven't thrown tarot though, but I'm just something never felt the kid to me. There's some things there, but no matter, neither here nor there. That is one day when I'm ready, I will sit down. But I definitely feel the cops messed that up really really bad. We all can agree on that, right? That did not have to happen. I really feel it did not have to happen. It didn't have to go that road. But I know sometimes if cops really just want an arrest and or maybe they feel strong, whatever, the most likely is the parent or whatever. It was just a mess. It was a mess. Okay. I know many people have had theories over the years. Hey, maybe everybody's wrong. Everybody's wrong. I don't know. I don't know. But I've always had this, maybe somebody lurking the pageant scene has been kind of my thing. Okay. Because there may be, moms who just want to show their kid, and there's creeps. Okay. That's reality. That's the truth. But one thing I did want to talk about, kind of take a break from, Idaho Murders, but kind of talk about something that is a tough one sometimes to face, as a reader and as a spiritualist. As a spiritualist, on one end, I do want to believe, that say when we're all kind of born here, and we come in to the world that we have potential to be good, whatever, we have choice, definitely. I feel for the most part we do, but there can be those that sometimes, let's put it this way, that is somebody born a dark soul. Like when I was talking to, or I was watching another reader, excuse me, but I did talk to them as well a little bit. They knew who they are and stuff. I don't want to give names unless they want to say, but when they were doing a read on Idaho Murders, when they were tuning into it, they felt this person was a dark soul. They were just okay. Um, Also, astrologers. Why do we look at charts? We're going to look for certain things that could possibly be in there, to maybe show some kind of darkness, some propensity for certain things. If we're going to pull a chart, we can see things. Now, it is kind of the tough part, though. Does it mean somebody was born to be bad? That's a tough one. That's a tough one. But when I've examined some charts, like Charles Manson, I've got his chart in here somewhere. Matter of fact, I could pull it up and talk about it. I definitely saw a potential, say with Charles Manson, he could have become maybe he could have been a pastor or a spiritual teacher on one end, leading people to God, or became who he was. Okay, but also being born to, the mother he had. His mother was a real bad mess. Okay, really made him a lot of what he became. Okay, and so it's a tough one. It's a tough one. So I sometimes debate with that. Are some people born and they're dark, and they're coming in here in that way? It's a tough one. That's a tough one. It reminds me of a little bit of a thing here, and I've kind of sat there, and some of you guys, when you hear this story, you'd be like, "Oh, you're talking bad about a 2-year-old." Okay, guys, just bear with me. I remember, you know how parents are. When you go in there, say you're going to look for a daycare, You know, you want to be careful. You want to make sure they're in good hands, all that good stuff. You're going to talk to who's ever the head of the daycare center, get to know, you know, the people at large, and talk to maybe parents, all that good stuff. You know, before I'm going to leave my kid in a daycare, I'm going to do everything I can to make sure they're safe, right? I did all that with this one daycare. So my son was 2. He's my very first. So of course I'm real protective. When they're your first, you do everything right. You wash them from head to toe and make sure they don't get germs. You don't want to get them sick. You do you're just so overprotective. You have the second one, you lighten up, just like that Love's commercial, right? So anyway, but there was this kid that was in the class. There was another 2-year-old. Okay, so we've got this class, he's another 2-year-old. I know you're all gonna be like, he's 2 years old. I know, but just hear me out. And this kid, okay, he was aggressive. He was very aggressive. Okay, and when he would go around, and he'd be starting fights, he'd be knocking stuff over. He was a very aggressive. He was different. So I remember one day, he had just, I was very observant because moms, and I had just come to pick up my son, and my son is kind of standing there, and he's not like this at all. He's not like that at all. And so there's a little bookshelf, just a little bookshelf kind of low to the ground, and he's kind of standing there, and there's this other 2-year-old. I swear to God this happened. He's kind of a buff 2-year-old. He looks over at me, looks me dead in my eye. He looks at him, and with all kinds of force, slams my son into the bookshelf. Little bookshelf goes over, and so does he. And of course he starts crying. Okay. So as soon as I saw that, went and got my son, and I went right to the head, and I'm like, we got a problem. This kid is a bad kid. I'm sorry. And I can't have my son in that class and have him getting pounded by this kid. So what they did, he was in the younger 2. They kind of moved him around into the 3s. And I think somewhere in the interim, they ended up having to kick the kid out because he was too aggressive. He's 2 years old. But when I saw him, and I saw that 2-year-old look at me like dead in my eye, and then look at him and throw him, I sometimes question, are some people born with something in them? Okay, now that 2-year-old is now grown up. I don't know. I remember seeing the parents, kind of assessing them and everything. It's hard to say. They did seem let's just say they seemed a little rough around the edges. Not trying to be judgmental. And they just seemed a little rough around the edges. That's all. I'm going to say it that way. So that way people don't get, like if I point out certain things, but just something I could sense. Okay, but I still feel something about that kid. And maybe there was a lesson in there that Spirit wanted me aware of, that maybe some, some kids got a little something, maybe some people are born with a little something, maybe a propensity for violence, certain things like that could be. The reason why I'm even kind of bringing up this topic is there is a YouTube, and I'm going to link it. I will pin it. Some of you have seen it and you've talked about it, and it's this is on Unsolved No More. It says preview: a current death row murderer and detective Ken Maines discusses Idaho College murders. Now, one of the things, I believe it's a person, I believe it's on San Quentin. Somebody is on death row. He's been there since he was about 18, and he's got to know a lot of people. Okay, that has met people, over time. He Richard Ramirez is one of them. The Night Stalker, many of you know. Scott Peterson tossed in there, and some others. But one of the things he said was that people are not necessarily always made that way, though I'm sure they can be made that way with the wrong parents and the wrong put them, in a certain, maybe it's a rough neighborhood, or rotten parents, absolutely. But there are those that that are born, they're born that way. And I had to sit there. It's like, I don't want to believe that as a spiritualist. I don't want to believe that some people can be born that way, but then I have to sometimes yield to it. I've looked at astrology charts of a certain people. Like I said, I've looked at Charles Manson's chart, and I've seen things in there that are like really, pretty bizarre. And I know we've kind of observed it. Sometimes we kind of see that those, like for instance, I know you don't have to be a reader like me to see it in the eyes. That darkness, that coldness in someone's eyes. That when people look in there, it's like, whoa, because the eyes are the mirror of the soul. Like if you look in my eyes, you can see something, right? I know you're seeing a lot of green too and stuff. I just like to be color coordinated, okay? But you can tell a lot about someone by their eyes, a whole lot. That you'll get the chills. You feel it's almost like looking into the void, the abyss, emptiness. Okay, I know. I think in Nietzsche, in things he said, and everything, when you look into the abyss looks into you, careful about those monsters, all that quote. Got it. So, but let me go ahead and read. I do have an article. Let me pop it up here. I'm going to have to kind of go away from my little camera here as I talk to you, but I do want to kind of read some of this. Hopefully I got the right article here. Hold on. There it is. This is an article that is from Science Focus. I'm going to kind of read here. Can people have a genetic predisposition toward evil? So I'm going to kind of read it from my screen. And then it says scientists wouldn't use the label evil. Of course not. Evil is kind of one of those. Is it almost a spiritual term somewhat? But describes someone as a psychopath. And all three traits of a psychopath personality can be inherited from your parents. I know that's a scary thought. Many of the sort of people who the media and general public would probably consider evil, such as murderers and other violent offenders who lack remorse, would not be labeled as such by psychologists who strive for the objective of a scientist. Instead, psychologists would describe these immoral, sadistic individuals as high scores on the personality trait of psychopathy, which consists of an interpersonal component, lying and manipulativeness, an emotional component, callousness and lack of emotion, and a behavioral component, violence and criminality. A couple of years ago, research at King's College London and Imperial College London conducted a systematic review of 24 studies involving thousands of pairs of twins who had been assessed using measures of psychopathy. The research concluded that all three aspects of psychopathy are heritable, passed on through the genes inherited from one's parents, and that the aspect with the strongest genetic predisposition is the callousness, unemotional element. So there's a little bit of that. So there's, they're even looking at bits of, genetic kind of things. But yes, he, this guy in this interview here, and I'm not gonna. I'll let you guys. I'm not gonna show it. I'll let you guys watch it because it's pretty long and he goes very thorough and in depth. That a lot people might be born that way as dark souls, that they can be, and that's a tough one. That could be a tough one. Now, of course, does it mean it's incurable? Does it mean it's impossible and things like that to be able to correct? That is probably one, for the psychologists and the scientists and everything to have to face. But it is a tough one. I believe the majority, a lot of cases, they can be made, like I said, with the wrong upbringing of the wrong parents or certain abuses. People could go traumatized and work on their healing, or also the anger and the molding and shaping can make them into something very difficult, and horrible. But yeah, there could be some born predisposition in weird kind of ways, and how all, whatever kind of gene and so forth, I guess they would have to break down. That'd be great to correct it and fix it if that is, inherently so. And let me just go ahead. I want to, that was, I thought there was more in that article. Let me just go ahead. Are people born evil? Let's put it that way. I know, and that's not, I know it's not a scientific term. As, and but I know it can be difficult, I guess, like I said, as somebody, especially if they're trying to resolve, you know, spirituality and their path and stuff. God, isn't so what are they doomed for hell? What is going on? Have they been reincarnated and are not, doing things? It is hard to say, and that is something that I do my best to kind of resolve as a spiritualist. Okay, that can be, a tough one. And there's it's something I think that's probably why, when horrible things like this happen, we're facing something that's very difficult within us and everything, but I know there are certain articles and everything, evil is not born and things like that. There's some people would dispute that, but I guess, when we look at how complex human nature is, we know certain things, with the mind and stuff, either, be it a gene or maybe something, in the makeup somewhere, there can be people that got some things that are kind of off there, that they've got some kind of defects in there. Okay, that can be very scary. And so there's even hold on one second, and even there's many articles, do genes make people evil? I just, studies that have kind of, that they've been definitely examining. But when I really examine this, on a deeper level, does science really truly know the answer? And they're just trying, they're still, I feel maybe they understand the tip of the iceberg, but not all that's on the surface. What's below there. Okay, they're seeing a little bits of it. I know they've tried to talk to people, have interviews, and some of these, say serial killers or whatever, have been pretty candid about certain things. I know Ted Bundy has tapes upon tapes, which I really have a hard. I don't think I've listened to a little bit, and then I'm like, man, I just can't listen anymore. It's hard. It's hard. Some people will, go through because they're trying to figure out what makes someone like this. I guess maybe some of this examination, is because people, yeah, I mean, they do want to understand, in everything, how, somebody can do the things they do. So here's an let's see, what is this? Now here's a perspective. This is on that Medium website, written by somebody named Simon Guillen. We'll go and look at it. Why not? Are some people born evil? Asking the question. They say humans are not born evil. However, humans are also not born good, but are all born innocent or naive, ignorant of what is right and wrong. In today's day and age, the meaning behind innocent and good are blurred because the word innocent carries many positive connotations, which would imply that is a good trait. However, to be good, one must display something that is morally right or righteous. And for obvious reasons, a newborn is incompetent at doing such things. We are born like a blank canvas, incapable of doing evil or good until someone taints or improves it. I would say the majority of cases, that is the way it works. Somewhere, like either be it the parents or something messes something up. Okay? Being good or evil is all about nurture, about environment, not nature, because by nature we are innocent. And then he's going to go into biblical kind of things there. But he also does talk about, there is a good point there, kind of bringing in the story Lord of the Flies. Now, when I was doing what was bizarre, I remember when I was reading the Kiely Rodni case, I had just seen, so when I brought up Lord of the Flies myself, it was kind of a bizarre thing. Maybe it's a coinky-dink, but it was just kind of weird. But I had just seen the thing there was a Netflix special on the newer Woodstock, not the old one, but the more recent one. I believe it happened in the 90s, and how things took a very negative turn. First Woodstock actually did very well, but this one, things got very negative, and there were people kind of out there screaming, it's Lord of the Flies. Okay, where everything got very primal and crazy and violent and stuff like that. So when I was kind of tuning in, to the Kylie Rodney a little bit, I thought maybe some of this party might have got a little Lord of the Flies. I actually made that statement. So when I later further, then I'm like, okay, now let's start checking interviews. I usually like to go in first before I do all that. Let's read, and then I'll go check interviews, and then I'll start doing a little digging. I like to go in raw. But anyway, so then I saw the Sammy, which a lot of people were focused on Sammy at that time because she was doing interviews, and she made a comment about Lord of the Flies. Okay, so Lord of the Flies, actually, the book by William Golding, it kind of talks about that. You've got these, kind of, kids, whatever, end up on this, this island thing, and they start getting pretty primal and crazy. Okay, there's a lot of that. It just kind of says, instead of saying that humans are born immoral and shaped by society, Golding explores a scenario where humans are actually born with an innate sense of savagery and are civilized by society. That is, until the young boys are left alone on a desert island and are therefore freed from their adult-imposed shackles, which ends up in a formation of occult and brutal attempts of murder of their once friends and comrades. This idea is only true to some extent, although Golding exaggerates a little, they say, in the way that all humans are capable of lying, killing, backstabbing, and other horrible deeds should the situation present itself. Perhaps early forms of human were inherently savage because they needed to be, like hunting for food. However, in modern times, humans are born more socially because of centuries of social control to minimize our inner beast, which was what religion sought out to do in the past. That's a good point, and Lord of the Flies is an excellent thing. And that's think about it. If I were to just sit here, okay, say me and all these church people are like, wow, human beings, okay, they can get out of line, they can do stuff, right? So they're gonna kind of come up with it's kind of a structure, a religious structure of heaven and hell. That'll keep people in line, because if they fear a hell, right, maybe they'll behave better, and then give them a reward, heaven. Okay, you see what I'm saying? Okay, so this has kind of been imposed on human beings. And so don't think, come on, it's and I'm a spiritualist here, guys. Okay, I definitely do believe in spirit, but I also know how man can be. And if anybody has done their homework and studied, over the years, do not think that human beings would not take some liberty with some holy books to be able to create a social order to control the masses. And one of the big things, let me just say, because it's not limited to Christianity, heaven and hell has been a big way of doing that. I will tell you, people wanting to go to heaven and they will behave, and fearing hell so has kept people in line for a couple thousand years at least, right? Okay, it's true. It's true. And many people out there, yeah, I wouldn't want to go to a bad place. Okay, you see, why do you think some of this is kind of in there? Lord of the Flies. Okay, because with that, people will, society behave. And then we also have certain things, like law. Nobody wants to go to jail. All that stuff. What is man trying to do by imposing some of these things? Because there could be, you never know, that beast inside. There could be that beast inside. Okay? I know, and it's a tough one to kind of face. The problem with that, of course, what happens? Say you have somebody shifting and really trying to be in the light, okay, but they're not acknowledging, we're like the Tai Chi symbol, the Tao symbol. We got light, dark, we have little dot. Okay, the East was pretty good about balancing that out, understanding the nature, where other ones are trying, nope, cut it off your darkness. Okay. So anyway, what happens? Somebody maybe wants to become a preacher man or whatever, and then he's running off to the prostitutes because he's trying to be good, right? Okay, all that stuff, having affairs in the congregation, and the Catholic Church and the children. Okay, all we could talk about all kinds of stuff with that, right? I don't want to get too ugly. This is a spirit talk. You get the gist. You get the gist about it. Those try to hide, be doing this light thing and then go in one extreme, and then they do crazy dark things. So it's a very scary thing. What human beings can be capable of. So it's kind of like, as we could say, this whole heaven and hell thing that has been taught to try to keep people in line, which really that's what it was for. That's what it was for. Don't think that liberties were not taken with Jesus's words. Oh, I'm sure certain things that were written down, we can feel some powerful things with them. Absolutely. And stuff. Absolutely. I'm not up here saying he didn't exist, guys. I'm not going to do that. Absolutely not. There's definitely some stuff there. But I also am saying that there's some liberties to cause people to fear. Okay, go into a bad place. My view is a little different. Spirit wants everybody to evolve into the light. That's the bottom line. That's my understanding, with my connection. You may agree or disagree. That is totally fine. But one thing I do, implore you to do is do your own investigation. Start questioning things. Don't be afraid to question, because that's what, these people who created all this stuff don't want you to do. And unfortunately, going to certain extremes has not necessarily helped society. It's really not. We have to make certain things conscious. And this is something I've been writing about this week. This is something Carl Jung talked about. And everything is not, where, let me get the quote. Hold on. Let me get it exact, because I don't want to mess this one up. This is not one I want to paraphrase. Give me a moment. I was just talking about it. I should know this by heart, guys. Forgive me, but it's like almost 5 a.m. Give me a moment. I want to get it right. Give me a moment. I wrote a big old thing on it. I was talking about all kinds of stuff. People will do anything, no matter how absurd, in order to avoid facing their own soul. One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. So the only thing we can do as individuals is try to know our own darkness. That we have to acknowledge it. We have to face it. That's one of the big things as a spiritualist when we talk about shadow work. Okay? Is acknowledging, what those things that we push aside that we don't want to acknowledge about ourselves. The more we want to try to deny even what can be our own dark side, it can grow into a pretty big beast. A great book, which really has a lot to do with the Jungian concept. If you know anything about it, you will spot it. Is Fight Club. It's a very good book. And the movie is good too, but the book is better. Okay, it will break it down exactly what happens. It talks a lot about that. Okay, so we got, the one character, obviously we know he's kind of going out, the society, and everything, kind of living his life, but his shadow side, which is the Brad Pitt side, okay, and everything, that's the shadow. It was always him, but that's his shadow side coming out. And the madness and how it kind of takes over the big whole, the Fight Club deal. It's actually really good. It's actually an excellent book. So one of the things about this whole thing, with human nature and everything, it's a tough one, and I wrestle with it. I it's like on one end as a spiritualist, I do know Spirit wants us to evolve in light. I do understand that nature, but I do also sometimes think to myself of that little 2-year-old who shoved my son. Okay, and I do have to accept that there could be things in there within the human condition, certain things where maybe the darkness is more conscious and the light is the thing being pushed to the side. Okay, it's a tough one. it is a tough one, and it's kind of like, where do we go from here? Ooh, it's real. One of the things we definitely, do we want, scientists to be able to bring us more info, so maybe we can, hopefully, if there's any kind of hope for humankind, if there's some things we can do to maybe kind of fix and correct, certain things, maybe either, get treatments so people, do not go that road, in human nature. Definitely we've got that. But we also need to, grow beyond spiritually. We definitely need to do that. People need, this whole means of control that religion has tried to do. And it's right there, guys. It's right there. Which actually is the crazy thing in many ways when you go further in history, even using brute force and violence, to spread the thing, which is the crazy part. We have to acknowledge, the truth and the reality about certain things here. Because it does no service for everybody to believe in illusions. When it comes to spirituality, spiritual path, we're trying, we're all trying to get home, right? Or whatever you want to call it, and everything. We're all trying to learn and grow. So we have to, it's not going to do any sense, just indoctrinating everyone, and then everybody is brainwashed, with certain things that are not conductive of their spirit. And everything, holding up a measure that, you're stained with sin and all that. I know that would seem like a great answer, stained with the whole sin and took the bite and everything. Mankind has been trying to answer, this whole thing, why do human beings sometimes do, what they do? And there's no, there's not always an easy answer for it. This is something that's taking, thousands and thousands of years to explore, those answers. But that is, the best thing I can say is, for anybody, we have to also, really acknowledge the truth about that, what is within ourselves. Everybody has a darkness they have to face about themselves, no matter what. Me, you, everybody. We all have to. We have to be honest with it. We have to face it head on. And what kind of, makes us, tick, makes us fall. We've all done things. We've all hurt somebody. Maybe we've got revenge in some way sometimes. Maybe we've lied, we've stolen. We've all done things we're not proud of. That's part of human nature, kind of coming here, having this human experience. And we, but can we learn from it? Can we rise above it? Can we work on being better? Okay, can we work on being better? And I know right now, as I kind of talked about, with Earth, it's a lot, of lower astral stuff is coming in. And there are those that are just, it's heavy and it's affecting them and it's upsetting them. And then there are those that are loving it, the madness. They're loving it. They're enjoying it. They love, going on the rough side of town. They love doing the fight club and having the brawls in the basement. Okay, and getting whatever out of their system. Okay, it's a tough one. It's a tough one to face. So if I have to answer the question, man, it's, can people be bored that way? I guess the best way, if I laid it bare, all human beings really have light and dark within them. I do, you do, everybody does. We all do. But there could be those, that just, they lean more that direction for whatever reason. They're more drawn to it, to maybe, are they more drawn to some kind of very older, crazed primal kind of energy, that just, that almost enjoys hurting people, killing people, the various things. Is there something in there? Okay, I know if I looked back, in past, like they were kind of saying, that primal, eat or be eaten kind of thing. When people have to kind of scavenge for food or territory or whatever, there maybe had to be a certain way. Eventually, we try to become more civilized and build societies and have rules and regulation, have a language so we could communicate a certain kind of laws. Okay, so we could, be conductive, and work together, and that kind of grows the species there. I get that, but maybe there's some people who maybe something did not develop as much or something, and kind of goes back to that old kind of nature, and they never really got past that. And as far as society, they don't want to adapt to it for whatever reason. They may wear a mask and kind of play a role, but somewhere behind the mask, they're that nature. They're that Lord of the Flies nature and everything. And I know, of course, there is a thing, it does seem to be more men than women, though it's not a rule, that's not a rule necessarily. Women too can have certain things within them as well, that can be pretty dark, what they do and everything. So it's a tough one, but there can be hints of it in astrology charts, absolutely. Absolutely. For those who know astrology, that's why, we kind of look at it sometimes. And I know it's a tough one. It's like, but why would people be born like that? Why would they, do that? I do really believe everybody's got a spark within, but will they ignite it? Will they ignite it? Will they get that going? Will they change? Do they want to, face that, acknowledge that? And that's up to them. But if somebody say, if there is some kind of genetic thing, are the psychologists and are the scientists and so forth, how sure are they of that? Or is that gene in all of us somewhere deep down because of that old primal nature? Like just kind of funny in fascination, I've got 4 cats here, and they're all ESA animals. If anybody wonders why we have so many, they are, for my kid. But anyway, I have, they all have a different kind of nature. They're all cats. And if anybody knows, cats are the biggest predators on the planet. They are. It is said that they probably kill more things than anybody else. Like if you let them loose outside, they're predators. They go after birds. They go, that's their nature. They're very good at what they do. Even the basic domestic, you can domesticate them in the house all you want. But once they go out, it's all nature. Okay, and they're going to look for, whatever. When they bring in gifts, right? Birds, lizards, But anyway, so everybody has kind of a personality. I know they're domesticated and they can be friendly, but they all got that nature. Like I've got Mr. sitting here. He's the mischievous one. He likes to instigate and fight with people. We get, and I know my kid gets real mad when he does. He likes it. He picks on one in particular who he thinks maybe is the weakest. He picks on that one. And then he also tries to dominate the male cat. He's a big cat. Now, he'll be friends with him, but there are moments he wants to dominate. He doesn't do this with the girls, but he'll go to the guy and he'll bite him on the neck, to try to dominate. He's a big cat. Now, that guy's a big softy, and he looks at him like he's a little kid. He really doesn't want to beat him up, so he usually tries to get away from him and everything, but, that's what he does. This nature, this is kind of nature. Okay, but also, then we've got one of the old girl cats. She's the oldest one. 2 of these are her babies. Now, say when I'm throwing the temptations down for the cats, the boy cat, Duke, the what I said is kind of the softy, if the girls will start swimming in on his treats because they know he's a softy. And I have to stand there and guard him to stop them from going for him, but especially the mother, that one, she will go around. If I don't stop her, she doesn't care there's no sharing here. Okay, it's all about her. She eats her temptations as fast as possible, and she will do her best to go around and attack the other cats to take theirs. She doesn't care. The other cats aren't as bold as that one, but that one, bam, she will fight them for their temptations. Okay, when I'm talking about kind of that nature, I know, like, say, you have a civilized society, of people, there are people who, they kind of, I shouldn't steal, I shouldn't, take. But then there are those, do they have some kind of human thing in there? It's all about me. I'm hungry, I'm going to take it. I'm going to, people be there. There's a nature there. Just like when I know she's doing technically her nature. It's part of survival. She isn't, she could be friendly with them, but once the temptations come down, it's all about her. And you almost have to admire the cat, because if I threw her out in the wild and never let her back in again, she would probably survive, where maybe the others would not, because they won't necessarily go fight somebody for something. Okay, so that's the thing. And then we got Big Softy here. He's the biggest of them all, but he's the biggest pushover out of all the cats and everything. He doesn't want to fight. That's kind of just the way he is. I don't want to fight anybody. I want to get along with everybody. That's the way he is, and that's why he gets his ass kicked all the time. So anyway, and then of course, and the little black cat. When Mister goes after that one, she doesn't want to get into it. She growls and growls, but she gets real intimidated and stressed out. So then all of a sudden she's peeing and crapping everywhere. Sometimes that happens too. Luckily, since we moved into a bigger place, that happens less and less. But for a long time, we had to keep them separated. We can't have them in the same room because he always goes after her, and it's always a disaster and everything. So, I look at the dynamic of even what goes on in the house with the cats, which I know it sounds crazy. It's not that much different than human beings. How they can be. There's a certain nature that is in there. They may be domesticated around the humans, and they're two of them are laying on the bed. That's why I'm pointing that way. Two are laying in the bed right now, totally peaceful. But there are certain points that their nature, their predator nature, comes out and everything. That it's going to. And if I throw them outside and I said, go have fun, come back later when you're ready, they're going to go out and they're going to act all predator. And then, of course, I could talk about the feral cats running around that have none of that, because maybe they don't have a home, and it's all about, catching whatever they can to eat, survive. It's straight up predator. And if they see a human being, because they're not conditioned and they don't, and they totally fear us, they will run for the hills if you go near them. Okay? They have there's no conditioning there whatsoever. So yeah, in my assessment, it's an interesting one. I'm gonna go ahead and link the video. Some things he says are interesting, but it's really a tough one. But when I kind of really assess it, technically, I kind of almost dispute. I know I'm not a doctor, but I am a spiritualist, and then I'm just a keen observer. Maybe we all have a little gene in us. And it is just a matter of, are we going to nurture that gene, you could say, that primal nature of being a human? Okay, like I said, read Fight Club. Okay, are we going to do that? Or are we going to work more on this kind of light area and really kind of develop it? But I also feel we need to do it, don't do that whole because society wants you. We got to really uncover who we are as a spiritual being. That's what once get past all that, who are we as a spiritual being, right? That's what we got to kind of work at. Say Bruce Lee, I did a quote in the community, and I know everybody loves Bruce Lee. Come on, you can't. Okay, he's perfect at this, and a great example. He nurtured his spiritual nature. You could say, some of that, yang energy. He nurtured his spiritual nature, but he also has a primal nature. But he made it balance into something very masterful, powerful. Okay, watch him when, he obviously can fight, right? We know that. We know he can fight. And I'm sure he could, I know he's not with us anymore. But I have been to the grave of Bruce Lee and Brandon Lee. I'm a very huge fan. But he nurtured, that primal nature. I'm sure if he ever had to fight to the death, he could do it, right? We're pretty sure Bruce Lee could handle himself if it came down to it, right? But we also, could see there definitely the light-dark balance, of having that. There's this awesome spiritual nature, that is so incredibly, powerful, that really taught the world something. If you read his writings, his mind was incredible. That there was a goodness there, but there is still also that other side. That if you put him in a room and it's fight to the death, he's coming out alive. Okay, there's a balance there, a force. So maybe we all got the gene. And it's a matter of what we nurture the most, how we balance it out the most. Okay, who we choose to be. Maybe others may struggle more, especially if they are born into a certain family, parents, okay, how they affect, how society treats them, you could say, how impacts them. a certain stimulation, the stuff we put on TV, the stuff we put in video games, all the many things that influence and impact us and everything. And just even the astrology charts. Like I said, with Manson, he could have maybe gone on to be a pastor, some kind of, a holy roller, or became who he became, having that darkness myself. So it may not give the best answer I can, but somewhere in there, in that nature, if anybody is pushed, they could go totally Lord of the Flies. I do hope this helps, and you guys have a good day.